"Hey, you can't dress like that around here. You don't get to speak to me like that." Karen had finally run into someone who refused to bow down the way everyone else always did. And honestly, I doubt she learned a single thing from it. Even back when Susan and I were just dating, Karen never warmed up to her, not once, from the very start. Karen ran the HOA as president, and that position alone made her feel invincible, immune to criticism, and intoxicated with make-believe power. She'd sometimes act as if she'd never seen Susan before, leaving her stranded at the community entrance for ages, masking spite behind so-called procedure, while the guards looked on uneasily. I kept assuring Susan things would settle down once we got married. I couldn't have been more mistaken. As soon as we said our vows, Karen changed her approach entirely, hitting us with constant inspections, fines pouring in non-stop, warning after warning, and fake friendly smiles laced with malice. Married life was supposed to bring calm, but Karen treated our home like it was under investigation. Our bin sat 2 inches crooked, our lawn looked neglected, our door wreath was out of season. Every citation arrived with obvious satisfaction. Neighbors murmured apologies, too nervous to side with us since Karen loved making public examples. Susan tried being pleasant, waving, smiling, offering compliments. Karen answered only with icy stares and brand new rules that somehow applied to nobody but us. I understood then this had nothing to do with regulations. It was about dominance, shame, and forcing obedience. Susan felt it too, though she never complained, choosing grace over conflict. Even so, the pressure grew daily as Karen circled meetings like she was building a case. I watched closely, studying her habits, her supporters, her tells, keeping mental notes like evidence. Karen fed off people's fear. She figured we'd eventually crack, apologize, pay up, and fade quietly into the neighborhood. Instead, we remained courteous, refused to pay anything unjustified, kept records of everything, and kept smiling. That smile irritated her far more than any confrontation could have. Something was brewing, something unavoidable, because people like Karen always pushed too far when met with steady, quiet resistance. The signs were there for anyone paying attention. Let us know in the comments which country or city you're watching from. We're curious how far this story reaches. The next HOA meeting felt scripted, as though Karen had practiced every word beforehand. She stood behind the podium, jaw tense, scanning the crowd until her gaze locked onto Susan, then me. Her tone flipped from honeyed to razor-sharp as she announced a growing issue with inappropriate attire corrupting the community's standards. She claimed no names, yet her glare made the accusation obvious. She pointed fingers at newcomers, modern attitudes, and lack of respect, drenching the room in judgment. The board members nodded along, avoiding eye contact the whole time. I felt Susan tense next to me, composed but alert, sensing a public setup unfolding. Karen pressed further, promising real consequences for anyone breaking her personal standards, threatening patrols, monitoring, and punishments harsh enough to instill obedience. The neighbors muttered, some visibly uneasy, others amused. I raised my hand and asked to see the actual written rule. Karen gave a tight smile and dodged at the question, insisting that leadership demanded flexibility. That word meant unchecked power. The meeting wrapped up fast, her message delivered, her target chosen. Saturday morning came peacefully. Susan tied her sneakers and headed out for her regular jog. Same path, same rhythm, same outfit she'd worn for years. Leggings, sports bra, earbuds, confidence. Nothing indecent, nothing against any law. By midday, an email showed up. $2,000 for indecent exposure. I laughed at first, assuming it was a joke. Susan didn't laugh. She reread it twice, jaw clenched, anger held in check. We ignored it. Sunday brought another fine. Monday, 2 more. Tuesday, 1 at sunrise and 1 before supper. Karen was manufacturing violations, collecting fines like prizes. Every notice was dripping with arrogance, deadlines, and lean threats. We paid none of it, kept every document, sent copies to a lawyer friend, and waited it out. Karen caught on fast. Her drive-bys became more frequent. Her car lingered near our driveway. Her smiles disappeared, replaced with jittery frustration. She wanted us scared and submissive. Instead, she got quiet, patient, watchful neighbors. Friday rolled in thick with heat and tension. Susan headed out early, stretching by the curb, not realizing Karen had been watching from her car like she was stalking prey. As Susan jogged past the mailboxes, Karen suddenly stepped out, blocking her path with exaggerated fury, clipboard raised like a weapon. Curtains shifted, phones came out quietly. Karen demanded payment, ranting about disrespect, authority, and consequences. Susan stopped, pulled out an earbud, and calmly stated she'd broken no rule, worn nothing improper, and owed nothing at all. That calm response set something off in Karen. Her voice climbed, pulling in onlookers. She accused Susan of corrupting the community, undermining values, and disrespecting leadership. When Susan tried to walk away, Karen closed the distance, claiming the HOA had confiscation rights, reaching for Susan's top like she was grabbing an item off a shelf. The whole street went still. Susan let out a disbelieving laugh, asking if Karen had completely lost it. Karen hadn't stopped. She grabbed the fabric. Susan shoved her back on instinct, defensive but controlled, just enough to create distance. Karen stumbled, nearly toppled, and humiliation turned instantly into rage. She lunged forward, swinging erratically, yelling about arrests and bans. Susan responded, muscle memory taking over, deflecting the blows and pushing back. The struggle was messy but short-lived. Karen lost her footing. Susan remained steady. When Karen reached for her again, Susan landed a clean, controlled hit. Not vicious, just enough to end it. Karen collapsed dramatically, screaming about assault while neighbors filmed from every angle. Someone shouted for them to stop. Someone else let out a nervous laugh. Karen tried to get up, failed, and started pointing fingers, threatening lawsuits, arrests, ruin. Security showed up late, thrown off by the overlapping shouting and phones recording from every direction. Karen demanded Susan be handcuffed on the spot. Instead, the guards kept them apart and pulled up the footage right away. Karen's version of events fell apart frame by frame. Her reach, her grab, her first swing, all caught clearly. Susan stood there calm, breathing evenly, hands open, not bothering to argue. Karen kept ranting, mascara running, her authority crumbling with every replay. The neighbors' murmurs grew louder, and the mood in the crowd was shifting fast. Karen realized, too late, she'd crossed a line everyone could see. It was recorded for good, impossible to twist. Her power had always depended on nobody questioning her. That silence was gone now. Karen didn't calm down after that morning. She blew up completely. By that evening, she'd sent a flood of emails accusing Susan of assault, defamation, moral corruption, and violations of bylaws that had never actually existed. She rushed to file paperwork, careless and loud, still convinced fear would work in her favor. What she failed to grasp was that every new accusation only brought more scrutiny her way. A hearing got scheduled quickly since several residents had already submitted video, written statements, timestamps, and copies of her emails all at once. Karen showed up dressed to impress, still fuming, still performing control. Susan arrived composed, prepared, backed by neighbors who'd finally stopped staying quiet. Karen spoke first and dug herself deeper with every sentence. She contradicted her own paperwork, invented rules on the spot, and blamed the footage itself for showing her initiating contact. The board members grew visibly uncomfortable as the clips played, paused, and zoomed in, leaving no room for doubt. Karen's expression cycled through fury, shock, and panic. The mediator had to pause twice just to let things settle. Susan spoke only briefly, no insults, just facts, boundaries, and evidence laid out plainly. No theatrics needed. That difference said everything. The ruling came down hard. Karen's lawsuit was thrown out immediately. A counterfinding declared her actions abuse of power and physical misconduct. Every fine was erased. Karen was ordered to pay damages, complete anger management courses, and step down while a full ethics investigation took place. Gasps spread through the room when the resignation demand was announced. Karen shot up, yelling about conspiracies, then stormed off, stumbling in her heels, her image completely shattered. Outside, the neighbors no longer looked away. Phones stayed down. She walked out to nothing but silence. Things settled quickly after that. The HOA issued public apologies, rewrote its policies openly, and opened up new elections. Susan went back to her morning runs without any trouble, welcomed and supported by everyone around her. Karen's name turned into a quiet warning brought up at meetings. Proof that unchecked power eventually destroys itself. Justice didn't need to be loud. It simply gathered proof, played it back, and let the truth speak. Watching accountability win out felt far more satisfying than any revenge could have. The end.